Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Jacked. YGO here today. So today we're coming at you with my updated DDD deck profile. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing with you guys. So yeah, for once in a long time, this is not an updated DDD deck profile. We're gonna get into that in a little bit, but this is gonna be something different. I know everyone knows me for just constant like DDD's pretty well the only deck that I play. Now that is not true. In the past, I played when it was whenever a tier 0 format kind of emerges outside of the Zodiac format. I've kind of always pressed towards the more meta relevant decks from a competitive standpoint. Now, I have been playing P.U.N.K TEARLAMENTS Danger for the last little bit, so this is going to be my first place, back-to-back first place OTS locals TEARLAMENT deck profile. TEARLAMENT Danger P.U.N.K. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a funny scenario behind this. So I played this, the first ban list, or before the ban list I played this, I won, and then the next, after the ban list, I played the same, not the same list obviously, but I played the P.U.N.K TEARLAMENT Danger, and I 5-0 swept again. So basically what happened was, I ended up ordering the cards 2 days before the ban list, and the ban list came out, and they hit Chaos Ruler and all that stuff, so I ordered like the frogs, the toad, like all this stuff, like the P.U.N.K engine stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what? So all these cards are coming in, and I was like, oh my gosh, at least Perlarino went up in price. And the funny story is, out of all the cards I ordered, Perlarino actually got lost in the mail. So I had to scramble and find, because Perlarino went up in price and they were like nowhere to be found. Luckily enough, I found someone on D&K or whatever. They gave me a playset for a very fair price, cheaper than before I actually bought it too, so I was really hyped on that. It came in the next day. That was really good find for me. So yeah, so for the last little bit I've been playing P.U.N.K Danger TEARLAMENT. This deck is absolutely absurd. Before the ban list it was just ridiculous. It was pretty well unfair. And now I haven't seen anyone put out like a post ban list P.U.N.K TEARLAMENT deck, but I decided to kind of go on my own ways and play it because I already had the cards come in, and the reason why I like the way the deck plays, so TEARLAMENTS on its own, that's not kind of for me. Like, it's just kind of boring for me. It's a little bit too mid, and it doesn't really it does a lot, but like it's not really towards my playstyle. So I like a deck like DDD's that can follow every single mechanic and just burst out like every like XYZ, Link, Synchro, all that in one turn. This deck still provides that feeling, and it's still very, very explosive. So obviously there's a few cards hindered, but I found a way to kind of play it so that it's still very reasonably competitively viable, and a very explosive deck still. E-Telly is still a broken card, and I'm going to show you guys how I utilize it in this strategy, and what cards I go into, and why I go into them. So yeah, again, most people know me for just playing DDD, so I do play, this deck right now is basically puts everything else at an unfair advantage. Now, obviously, Sprite's still a really good deck, like, obviously. But TEARLAMENT, especially moving forward with the Ishizu stuff, I think as of November, this deck is going to be, if you're not playing this deck, you're fairly behind. And it's a little bit different than a lot of tier 0 formats that we've previously been in, right? So, this is a tier 0 deck in a stance where you actually have to have a specific skill base to be able to handle this deck, because there's nothing linear like at all about this deck. You have to know the right moves, how to play certain hands out, because if you put someone that doesn't know how to run the deck, like is not a very good pilot, any deck can literally blow out the other TEARLAMENT player if they play it wrong. Now, if you're a good pilot, this deck is basically puts them at an unfair advantage, because the deck is it just does so many things. It can break like any board without board breakers. It just does so many things, especially with the P.U.N.K engine still does so much, and it still works really effectively with the rest of the cards. So that's definitely something I want to go over today. I'm going to go over my extra deck. My side deck is not sleeved. I just recently sleeved this, and I just kind of put it together last minute, but this was the side deck I was playing at my locals anyways. I just got put in new sleeves. I just didn't feel like sleeving it, so we'll just leave it as is. Yeah, I'll go over my extra deck, the new extra deck that I've been using. So again, I won a locals, a 5-round locals before the ban list when I had Chaos Ruler, and then the next one after Chaos Ruler stuff got banned in the new ban list, I also did a 5-0 sweep at our locals. The second one everything was 2-0. The deck is like literally insane. Like, it just has so much gas still, and once you start your plays rolling, it's insane. And there's some cards in the side deck that literally won me, like, there's one card in the side deck that won me 3 games flat out. Like, it was just crazy. I'll show you, I'll get a little bit into depth of it, but I think you guys are going to like it. Again, it's not DDDs. Now, we're going to circle back around to that. DDDs, if Chaos Ruler and Hulk didn't get banned, there was actually a really good build that I had ready to show you guys that involved using Chaos Ruler and the like, basically with Tearlaments, it was still very effective because Chaos Ruler and Hulk were still a thing. So the deck was actually still very viable because the Tearlaments engine is just insane. Now, Dave and I, my brother and I are kind of working on something right now because there are ways to still play it. So we're going to kind of circle back to that, and I'll have another video for that out soon. So yes, there will be an updated DDD deck profile. Now, it's in the big time testings. I don't want to just put some random out on YouTube. So we will get to that, but for now, let's enjoy the deck profile. This is P.U.N.K Tearlament Danger post September 2022 ban list. I'll see you on my playmat. Oh, okay guys, so definitely really weird doing an in-depth deck profile of a deck that isn't DDDs. And the last time I did one was for Shit All Dinos, because if you've been a fan of the channel for a while or have been watching my videos for a while, you know that Shit All Dinos it still is one of my favorite decks to play. Because it's so insane going second. That was like the only other deck profile I've done outside of DDs. But yes, I do play when it starts when it starts to creep towards a tier 0 format, which we're about to go into. After Darkwing Blast and whatever that Mama set is, I forget what it's called, but once the Ishizu stuff comes out, this deck is going to be way above everything else. The Ishizu stuff is literally ridiculous and puts this deck at an absolute unfair advantage. Now, this is the one time Virtual World was actually really fun when VFD was around. Now, playing against VFD, it really got boring, and the deck was still very viable. It still is, right? But this deck, I think it's so fun to pilot because it does so many things, and it just keeps going. Like, it's really fun to play, right? So I really enjoy playing this deck, and I will be piloting this deck for the foreseeable future. But as I said, I do have another list in the works that I am teetering with some ratios and engines. So yeah, if Hulk was still a thing in Chaos Ruler, I had a really good DD list to put out for you guys, but now I have to revamp it. So yeah, so let's get into the main deck here. So main deck is 41 cards. It could be 40 if you wanted to. I like playing 41 to 40. So let's get into the ratios. This is standard ratios for, especially if you're not playing like a peer. So triple Rhino, triple Merly, triple Sheeran, and triple Havness, okay? So this is very standard, right? Well, I could put Perlerino out too for frig's sakes, but yeah, I think the camera can see that fine. So this is very standard, right? I don't really have to explain this. You can play one even of Rhino Heart, but I like two. Two is absolutely fine for me. I'm always searching it, and since I have more than one engine in the deck, 2 is completely fine. And Rhino Heart is very easy to cycle back into the deck when you need it, right? So yeah, Merly is probably your best normal summon. Now it depends where you're at. If you're able to like tutor out, like get out like 2 darts, like I found out really early playing this deck. Now I still need a little bit of work with the deck, obviously, like, but again, it's play as you go kind of thing. The way I find Merly being the best normal summon, because there was one time when I was first piloting the deck, I almost lost a game because I had 2 darts with different names. This is the pre-ban list. And then I searched Rhino instead of Merly, normal summon Rhino, and they decided to Valor the Rhino, instead of what's it called? Now, if I searched Merly and they Valored Merly, I would have just won the Curious and just absolutely obliterated that game. So yeah, Merly is your best normal summon. It's a dark aqua. It's crazy how their dark aqua is like, that's just insane. This obviously is a water warrior, but yeah, still really works, and he's gives you access to what's it called? Now, Havness is insane. You can use this going whenever they use a monster effect, right? You trigger it, and then if you're playing the mirror match, you want to summon the level 4, the Mud Dragon, because then you want to trigger it when they use like a Rhino Heart or something, because then you summon Havness, and then if you're able to fusion summon, you summon Mud Dragon, and then Mud Dragon makes it so they can't target their own cards to tribute out what's it called. They basically have to pass if they don't have an extender. It puts it so they need an extender, right? So yeah, so these ratios are very standard. Sheeran is like, everyone knows what this deck does. I really don't have to go over that. I just have to go over my ratios and why, like certain plays you want to do, like Havness, for example, right? the rest of the Tearlaments cards. So Perlarino, this is the card that got lost in the mail, and then eBay refunded me, and then next day I literally had these shipped out by a homie. So yeah. So I'm doing triple Perlarino and triple Solik. So triple Solik is because this card's actually really good to either see or especially if you're playing the P.U.N.K engine, because you can send this off of what's his name. But Solik is really good to either draw or see or just hit off a mill. So playing 3 really guarantees your odds, and just having this to be able to set is really nice too. So Solik at 3 is good. I decided to just play it at 3, and yeah. And then Perlarino, there's not much explaining there, right? Perlarino is just such a broken card. Like, actually ridiculous how good the card is. Yeah, a field spell like that is just ridiculous. Boosts your cards, searches on activation, and then also pops a card whenever you fusion. It just such good synergy. Yeah, for the dangers, this is it, right? Triple Nessie, Sook, and Jack. Now, the reason why I really like Nessie is because it's a level 7. So when I start going to my P.U.N.K plays, Nessie being a level 7 can throw your opponent off sometimes, because the Xiamen, you can randomly just go into a Baron using Xiamen and Nessie. It's really cool. And then Such and Jack, I mean, there's not really much explanation for those two. This is very standard engine, but that's why the one that needed explanation a little bit was Nessie, because when you mix it with something like Xiamen, it literally gives you a free Baron. And it's your opponent doesn't always see it too, unless they're really savvy. They really don't see it, so it's pretty nice. Moving on to the P.U.N.K engine, so this is going to be interesting ratios. So 1 Xiamen, double Foxy Tune, and the 1 Deer Note. So 3 E-Tully, and 3 E-Tully, of course, all different rarities. This is like Ghost from the Past. This is the original from High Speed, and then this is the janky rarity. So yeah, so 1 Xiamen, 1 Deer Note, and then double Foxy Tune. So Foxy Tune's really good at more than one, I find, because it when you open it, it gives you ease of access to Xiamen, right? And now I have to use my normal summon for a Deer Note somehow at that point, but like I said, sometimes I can just summon Xiamen and use my danger. Now they do conflict a little bit, like the dangers and the E-Telly and stuff, but it is what it is. I honestly think it's still worth it because it gives you more gas, because by the time you resolve all this, you're negging a little bit, right? You got to think about it. And then your danger might only have 2 other cards in hand, which is fine, which is completely fine. But Foxy Tune's nuts because it pitches itself for cost, and then it can send a card. So if you open, literally, if you open any of the names, as long as you have another card to fuse with, it fusion summons. Or if you open Solik, which is ideal, if you open Solik, you pitch the Foxy Tune with Solik, it's a free search. It literally gives you so much advantage. So I think this engine's 100% still worth playing. Now, the reason why I decided to stick with it was because, one, I had Foxy Tunes come in the mail, which aren't cheap, and the ban list hit. Now, I was kind of stupid. I thought, honestly, they were going to wait off on a ban list till, like, December when the Shizu cards and stuff started having play. But they didn't, and I kind of got screwed over. So I was like, you know what? I might as well use this to best advantage. The reason why I actually ordered all these cards was because I liked the way this deck just works so much, and I had to find out a way to still play it, because the mechanics it utilizes is literally like DDDs. It uses Synchro, XYZ, Link, and Synchro, XYZ, Link, and what's the other one? Oh, Fusion. Jesus, like Fusion is the main strategy of this, but that's the reason why I like it, is because it does all 4 of those in one turn very easily. So yeah, and it just does so much at the same time. So yeah. So yeah, Foxy Tune's insane. Just 2's fine. You could even play this at 1, but I like 2 because, like I said, opening it, you do have to find a way to normal summon the Deer Note. But just pitching that other card's like just so nuts. Just so nuts. Like if you open Solik, it's really nice. So they do, like I said, they do conflict a bit with the danger cards, but it is worth it for the fact that Nessie is also a level 7. And then you can just summon Nessie and then just make a Baron right from there and just play freely, essentially. Going on to the broken graveyard cards. Yeah, so Destrudo, Plague Spreader, and Zephyros. So these cards are all insane. This gives you, again, access to Baron, and like really niche plays where it's a dark dragon. It's a dark dragon, but it's also a tuner. So like I said, access to Baron usually is what you're doing that for. You can do it really strategically and just drop its level by 3, and then just use a or by 4, and just go from there, right? Or even drop this card by 5 if you have Kid out, and then it just make. There's just so many instances where it comes up, right? Like to make it into a level 2 or whatever, just so you can make Baron really. But this also gives you really easy access to, it's an extender for 1 if something happens, and then 2, it gives you ease of access to Curious, which is really nice. Now, Plague Spreader is insane because you put any name on the top of your deck. Like, you can play this really smart where you just put a name on top of your deck, and then you trigger a card to fusion, and then you immediately know you have another fusion play coming, right? Or you put a Solik on top of your deck, and then you add, and then you keep going from there. Plague Spreader is insane. If you want to play more of this, you could, but for deck space, I'd rather not. And then Zephyros is just insane too because you can bounce. It's a Dark Winged Beast, which makes Curious very easily. It's a level 4 for Abyss Dweller, and then also you can bounce a Danger back to hand and just use a Danger effect again. It's just nuts. So Zephyros is only once per duel, but taking damage is kind of neat too. I mean, depending on what you have some certain flex spots in your extra deck, right? So that'll work too. But yeah, those are the broken graveyard cards. Now for broken one-ofs, we have Terraforming, oh my gosh, Instant Fusion, and Galaxy Cyclone. So this is the only spell and trap removal. I'm completely fine with just having the one because you do mill enough and then this just pops. You just need something to pop Mystic Mine essentially. The deck handles, this deck can even handle Rivalry really well as long as you don't have another like floodgate to back it up with. But if it's just Rivalry, and then you can usually push through certain interruptions and just get rid of the Rivalry like that. So yeah, Cyclone is just, that's the reason why it's there, just basically stop mine. Instant Fusion, I don't have to explain this, but you can also just summon Mud Dragon off it and protect your, if you have a fusion play already, you can just summon Mud Dragon, just go to Kick Callous, or just, oh sorry, yeah, because the Kick Callous triggers on summon, yeah, you summon the level 4 and then you protect from Imperm and Veiler. Then Terraforming makes it so you play 4 field spell. Not much to be said there. And then lastly for board breakers, so this is going to be pretty spicy. Super Polys, evenly matched. So going forward, now that Frogs or what's it called is not being played, and pretty much at all at this point, Frog, oh my gosh, Totally Awesome isn't really being played. Evenly Matched is really good right now because if you think about it, Tearlaments and even Sprite, these decks aren't putting up Omni negations. A lot of it's just like recursion and stuff like that, just focusing on the long game, like really mid, or like just really good boards that don't have Omni negates. So evenly, basically just no deck really plays around evenly. So when you're going second, you have 6 cards in your hand, you just evenly someone, it just makes it so free at that point because they usually don't have a lot of follow-up. They need their board to have follow-up. So evenly is a really good way to clear boards and to kill their follow-up so you can build your own board. And then, because like I said, a lot of the follow-up comes from the board they establish and they do it from there, right? Like Tier, they need their board to have follow-up, right? So evenly is a smart way to kind of hinder your opponent that way. And Super Poly, moving forward, I think this card is just always going to be good. So it really pluses you in the sense where you can just use your opponent's card. Sure, they can trigger like tier cards in the mirror match, but this card's really good against everything else. Against Fluunderies too, you can, depending on what they opened, this is a good way to like out their board if they don't have the win guy. So yeah. So yeah, that's a 41 card solid deck. You could make it 40 by cutting like certain things, like maybe you just put I mean, I like 41 for one, but Foxy Tune, again, being able to ditch any card is really nice, so I like playing it at 2. And then you could also just cut Terraforming if you really wanted to, but having 4 of the field spell is pretty nice because that card is insane, and it helps your deck really keep grinding. So let's go on to the extra deck. Double Kit, 1 Kaleido. So the reason why I'm playing 2 Kit, I was previously only playing 1. The reason why I play 2 Kit is because the Bestial card's coming in. They're going to be able to banish this, so you want to be able to have the second one. Even though the deck doesn't 100% thrive on a Kick Callous because you have multiple engines, Kick Callous is really good to just have 2, and you have the room for it, so I'd recommend just playing 2. And like I said, the Bestial card's moving forward. Now, you can cut this for the new guy, Lulu, whatever its name is, but yeah. And then Kaleido Heart, I don't really have to explain this card. This card's insane. Once you have this card out, it gives you very good recursive play, and as long as you play it correctly. And then for the remainder of the fusions, right, these do not need explaining. Like I said, if you're playing the mirror match, or if you open instant fusion, the first card, and as long as you have a way to fusion summon, the first card you summon should be Mud Dragon because then you have targeted protection. And then in the mirror match, you summon this off of the Havness fusion, right? So you send some of this before they're able to get into Kit, before they're able to target Kit, right? And then you make it so they're all dark, and then Kit can target itself, right? So yeah, and then these really don't need explaining. I guess Garua is pretty expensive now, so it's pretty cool. I pulled all of mine, so out of prize packs. Synchros, so this is what got interesting, right? So Baron obviously is always good. No matter what variant you're playing, you should be playing Baron. But Omega is a level 8 I can just generically summon, right? So even if they stop the revive from, like they crow the revive, I still have a free Omega on board essentially, and this rips a card from my opponent's hand and helps recur any card that got banished. So if they say they banish like a kid or something that came up where they stop the revive and they banish a kid, they open like double crow. Well, this can bring back kid on the standby, and then this can rip out a card in their hand, right? So as long as they don't have Dark Ruler, you're fine. But the reason why I play Omega is because it's a generic level 8, and then I can also shuffle back another card, so I make sure my recursion's at its peak. That's why I decided to go with Omega, because what happens instead of going to Chaos Ruler, you just go Omega, and then you're not chain blocking, but I mean you're always chain blocking the Ruler anyways. But you summon back a level 8, and we'll get into that in a second, right? So Omega on its own is pretty good. I still end on it sometimes. I like the card, right? So ripping a card out of your opponent's hand, depending on the game state, can be really vital. And let's go on to the XYZ. So yeah, so I decided to move towards this. Now, Abyss Dweller and Zombie Vampire. So the reason why I decided to like move forward with the Zombie Vampire is because this is a dark zombie. It can literally make E-Telly as long as you hit the correct cards. As long as you hit do okay on the hits for your Zombie Vampire, you have it makes E-Telly a 1-card Curious, right? Or sometimes even an Apo, depending on how good you really went. But it's essentially a 1-card Curious. It makes this makes E-Telly a 1-card Curious as long as your mills are okay. So it's a dark zombie, and it can be targeted by special summon monsters, which is kind of nuts. But now a lot of people are going to be like, oh, but yeah, you got to mill your opponents. So if you're playing the mirror match, I would still make this, because as long as they don't mill more than as long as they don't mill more than one name, which they usually don't out of 4 cards, you get to mill your own cards. And then if they mill a Merly or something, you take that one name. And if they mill another name, sure, it is what it is. Like, it's fine. I'm already this far ahead. I'm not too concerned. They have to open really nuts in that sense. But Zombie Vampire will take that card, and then you're going to be able to trigger the other names you hit in grave. So it's really nuts. You take them early, and then you essentially just make a Curious for free. So, and then Dweller is an auto win. This card is absolutely stupid. I don't think these cards that include the effect of like lingering should be in the game, but is what it is, right? So yeah, onto the links. For the link 2s, I'm playing Elf and Dark. I really don't have to describe these. Elf is insane. This actually helps you make Curious sometimes when they crow you. I've done it like a few times. And then Elf is just, it's really good to just end mid, like where you just end Elf and then you have like a mid-range board, and then you can just summon Merly and then just play on your opponent's turn. Elf is just such a good card. Again, I pulled 2 Elves from prize packs, which is nice. So then Curious. For the not linked 2s, we're going Curious, Apo, and Sword. So I'm not playing the Griffin or the a way to get Spell Canceller. I'm completely fine without them. I previously actually was before playing Eradicator, and I don't like it because it's too much commitment for 1, and 2, the card you're tributing, like, it feels like you just overcommitted for what? Like, you really want to have the thriving game rather than just tributing a card you made the effort to make, and it doesn't trigger anything like of your own stuff. Now it's broken because I've used it on a Flu player where his whole hand was spells and I just won that game. But yeah, that is what it is. So then Curious, I still decide to play it because it's very easy to make. And then Boral Sword is an instant. Thing is, like, this deck doesn't always have an easy out to certain cards. So I decided to play Boral Sword because this is an auto OTK, and this deck spams bodies, so it just makes it very easy to just win with the Boral Sword there. So yeah, so that's it for this extra deck. Let's travel into the side here. We're playing Gamma, right? This is the only hand trap I'm actually playing in the side. Now, Nib moving forward, it's probably going to be really good, Nib, to be honest, but we'll see. For now, Gamma is really impactful. If you hit the Sprite rank 2, it's insane. Stuff like that, right? I really don't have to explain this too much. For the next big board breaker is Dark Ruler. This pretty much just shuts out every single board moving forward. Then you just have to deal. Your deck can gas through a lot of things without board breakers, so being able to shut out all the problems, even if they have like smashers or like a Soul Leak or something, you're still, and they can fusion, you're still usually pretty good if you open the amount of gas you normally do. Going on to the Spice, this is the one that won me 3 games. The last tournament was Denko Seka. This card is stupid in this deck, like literally stupid. So I played against an Eldritch player the first round, and I won game 1. I actually eradicated him. So the card I did cut from this list was Eradicator because I just don't like it. It's just too much commitment, like I said. But Denko Seka was crazy. So I eradicated him game 1. He basically had the scoop, and then game 2 he set 4 with the the spell and pass. And then I normal summoned Denko. He didn't have judgment. I just played freely. Like, it was crazy. And then I played another striker player. Now he didn't open the greatest, but he still had like the Widow Anchor and stuff. And then I literally just summoned this and just went off and just won. Like, it was literally just, it's literally an unfair advantage. I think this should be in everyone's side deck moving forward with back row decks. Probably going to be a little bit more popular after Dabble. Denko is insane. Like, actually crazy. It's an auto win button against these back row decks. And then lastly, Triple Cyclone Duster, because we're not playing DDs and we don't have super simple back row removal. And then lastly is Crime. So Crime is going to be a bit more searchable. You can... with Crime, you just search this going first into games 2 and 3, and then this just stops like Dark Ruler, all those problematic cards, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then the effect to like shuffle back a banished card can come up sometimes. Like, it came up a couple times in the past 2 tournaments. So yeah, this is a good card overall. So yeah, okay, so that wraps up the deck profile. Now, I gotta get going in a second, but I'm just gonna make this real brief. I am going to do one test hand with e-teller and kind of show you guys what the new format stuff does. So let's get into that right now. I'll see you in a second. Okay guys, so this is gonna be just a combo test hand portion of the video. It's just gonna be really brief, honestly. All of this really is showcase. We've all seen TEARLAMENTS do its thing, right? How it plays. Now, I'm just here to showcase how the way I'm playing the E-Tele variant is going to work. Now, again, it's not Chaos Ruler, Elf, Chaos Ruler, and then an Elf Baron directly after. Like, that literally needed 2 hand traps to be stopped, and then after you had that was from 1 card. It was just so broken. Now it's a little bit different, but it's still super broken, and if it goes uninterrupted as well, it's literally just game. It's essentially a free curious. I'm going to show you how this works as a free curious and why it's still fairly worth playing. The reason being is because it still has a lot of synergy with the way the deck works, and I couldn't really give out the punk stuff because it just gave it the synchro aspect of the deck. That's what I really like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this isn't to any surprise. Like, the deck really does not brick, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Now, I would probably drop an E-Tele first, depending, or Perlarino. I actually might go with a Perlarino first, because if they decide to Ash, then I'm probably just going to drop Perlarino first, because then if they do Ash this, I already have a name in hand, so I'm not too concerned, and then I have E-Tele to get me anything else. So that would get one interruption out of the way, so I'm going to go ahead and add Merly. The deck honestly doesn't brick. I literally don't drop games when I play this deck because it's just so gas. It's at a locals level anyways, right? Even at a competitive standpoint, it's honest. If you can pilot this deck correctly, it's honestly hard not to top. Like, it's just, you have to know how to pilot it correctly though, because if you don't know how to pilot this deck correctly, like this deck, there's nothing linear at all to this. Like, it's just like, the way you step through your combo and like certain things you do, right? Like playing this before this, or playing the danger before certain things, right? That's kind of what differs people from other people playing this deck, or any punk variant, or sorry, any TEARLAMENTS variant at that point. If I can even find Xiamen, oh, here he is. So we're gonna summon Xiamen, right? Xiamen effect is going to search. If I can find it. Foxy Tune, and now Foxy Tune can literally it can pitch Destrudo, it can pitch Nessie. It depends. If you want to, I don't really want to trigger the fusions just yet. Reason being is because I want to kind of get through the punk stuff first and then go from there. So Destrudo is a free pitch, right? So I'm just going to get rid of this, and then my danger stuff has more targets, and I can save these names for afterwards. So yeah, gonna pitch. Don't know why I'm going to my extra deck. Summon Deer Note. You're gonna go ahead and summon Deer Note here, right? It's the same thing as before. I know the new punk combo is more so set for pure, but this is what you're doing if you're playing non-engine. Gonna go ahead. You're gonna run into an Omega. Omega is not gonna have an effect here, obviously, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna summon Deer Note's gonna use the effect to trigger to summon Foxy Tune. And then you're going to go ahead and make the rank 8, right? So now I don't know if I shuffled or not, but if I have garbage mills, I'm just gonna reshuffle here. So going to Zombie Vampire, if they imperm this, doesn't matter, you still have all this in hand, and you have a Destrudo Engrave, I'm really not concerned at that point. But you're gonna use Zombie Vampire to mill. You're gonna detach the Omega because this shuffles back anything you need. That's why I really like Omega, right? And if they crow, like there's instances where like if they crow a like one of my necessary cards, like my Kit Kalos, I can actually find a way to make this and then just shuffle back on standby phase. Pretty cool. So we're gonna go mill 4. That's really good already. So I don't know why I hit so many Merleys, but that's fine, I guess. We're gonna go ahead, summon the Merle. It's really good regardless. So Merle's gonna trigger. Now this is where it might be a little bit hard to summon the you have all aquas now, so it's gonna be a little bit hard, but you're gonna go Merle to mill 3, you're gonna go blah 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 blah, right? You're gonna go another mill 3, you're gonna add. So I would probably just add first, right? I'd add a Rhino Heart maybe, or a Havness, depending on what my opponent has. I go for Rhino Heart here. And then what else is triggering? Merle's Confusion Summon, and then the deck just honestly just does so much. It's kind of ridiculous. You could even put Destrudo back and just make Curious and just summon the Destrudo that way. It really depends on how you want to do it. And then you're gonna go ahead and mill 3. Right, I'll probably do this, and then you can resolve Merle. So now you, oh, okay, this is just stupid. So I might as well just end there. Like I'm gonna mill those 3, and then Merle Confusion Summon. And then Havness, Merle's going to Fusion Summon, then Havness is going to Fusion Summon, then Sheeran's going to Fusion Summon, and then you have all this in hand. Realistically, there's not much of a point of stepping into this. Like what I would do here, right, is with the, because Merle can Fusion Summon now, you just summon Garura or whatever, right? And then you kind of just go from there. So basically this sets up a free Curious, right? I'm not even going to play this out because this would take forever and it's just completely non-linear. You just keep going from there. But this is just kind of showcase why I'm playing the P.U.N.K engine still in this variant and why I still really like it, is because when you go uninterrupted, it makes this, and even when it's interrupted, it still forces out hand traps and you still keep going from there. But it's literally it's like literally 100% of the time, if it's uninterrupted, it's a free Curious, right? And then if you're playing the mirror match, well, they have to mill like this to be able to even like start popping off, which doesn't happen often. So I am comfortable milling 4 usually in the mirror match, but it's really good in the mirror match. You got to think, if they only mill 1 name, you get to summon that and trigger the rest of your effects, the 4 potential hits you have, right? So I'm not, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to bother going through it because this would just take forever to walk through. Basically, this is just to show you that it's a free Curious, and then you're all set up from there, right? So, and then you fill your graveyard essentially, right? So, yeah, so I'm just going to wrap the video up here. Like I said, there's literally nothing linear at all about doing these combos, so I'm not going to step forward and just keep going because it's going to take forever and there's so many different routes I can go down. But again, the essential idea was just to show you that the P.U.N.K engine is still viable in this deck, and it still really works wonders essentially, right? Now, obviously, the more competitive might be like a Lunalite, but even then, I find the tier limits are just so broken, and so is the P.U.N.K engine still, that it is still very competitively viable, and it's still very explosive. Not Chaos Ruler level explosive, but again, this is essentially just from one E-Telly, right? All of this, like, it's very, very free, and it just, yeah, it's pretty insane. So yeah, I hope you guys like that video. So like I said, I obviously usually DDD videos, but today I want to switch it up a bit because this is what I'll be playing from a competitive standpoint moving forward. Now I am in the works of a new DD deck that was actually pretty broken before the ban list, but now unfortunately I couldn't get it out in time. But yeah, I hope you guys like that, and I'm just going to wrap it up here, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay jacked.